Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining in today's session, the webinar on what is new in Signifikant's latest release, version 5. Our speaker for today is Ruud de Broekere, who is the head of product development at Signifikant and who's worked with many of you in getting this version release ready. Your microphones will be unmuted, and please feel free to click the unmute button and ask a question at any point during the presentation. Ruud, over to you.
Thank you. I will just put on my screen for a short while so you can see me where I'm sitting and that I don't haven't ironed my shirt for nothing. It was a long time ago. I had it on. Welcome everybody and welcome to this webinar about the new release of Signifikant platform. And this kind of seminars or webinars are often quite boring, of course, because we're only going to tell what is new. But I think that we actually have so much news this time that it could be, hopefully, could be interesting anyway. If I go to the next page, I think I'll turn on off my camera again so that you see more of it. I hope that everybody sees my slides. Otherwise, click the unmute button and get yourself heard. Then we can see what's the problem. But you should see now a slide which says Signifikant, the aftermarket company. And I will not take very long about this slide. You all know our company, I believe. We make a platform for the aftermarket information and aftermarket e-commerce business. But what we will look at today, as you could say that technically we have two areas of our product. We have the Signifikant Manager, who takes care of the backend, who takes care of filling the aftermarket PIM, product information management system, the database with information, enriching that information, validating that information, and then publishing it to catalogues. And these catalogues are then also integrated with e-commerce functions for other systems, other web shops or ERP systems. So we have two parts. We have the backend manager and we have the front end, the web viewer. I will start today with the front end, with telling about what is new in the front end, what you can do in the front end, how you can make it look and feel. And then we will go into the back end, which may be a little bit more technical, but still hopefully very important and interesting, because that is where you make sure that everything that is shown in the web viewer is correct. So that is my plan, and then the backend, of course, is not only the Signifikant Manager, the Windows application, but also the Signifikant Server, the web service, which allows you to do everything also through the API. Okay, then, as promised, I will start with what is new in the Signifikant Web Viewer. Well, you could say that the user interface, the user experience is being renewed from the bottom. So when you upgrade to version 5 of Signifikant, you can have two choices. Either you stay with the old user interface, or you set in the configuration that you will use the new, and it's very much new. It's completely designed for being responsive. It is designed for giving you much more freedom to determine what you want to show and where you want to show it. It has a lot of features which you would recognize from typical B2C web shops, hero pictures, which are the banners on top, the nice images on top of which you then will have text. You have the opportunity to, as I said, to determine, do I want one column, two columns, three columns? What will happen if I make the screen smaller? How will I how will I have the colors and so on, everything that you were used to, but you have now much more possibilities. You have possibilities to add several images for products, for parts, so that you can browse through them, look on the back side of the product, the front side of the product, inside the product, the back side of the part, maybe zoom in on it. So there's a really enormous amount of work done on the interface. Also on the way you configure the interface. Before, we had a lot of one configuration file where you could configure a lot of the features and the functionality, and a limited amount of the look and feel and the colors and so on. Then you had to go to the CSS file and do a lot of work there. This is also made easier with a system called Less, that you have a few files where you set, for instance, colors that are reused in many places in the website, and you set these colors in one place instead of in many places within the CSS files. This is too technical to go into now, but the main takeaway of this is that we have done a lot of work on the user interface, and it really looks very much updated compared to the old ones, who also already were very nice, of course. Scrollable pages. So when you scroll down, the header will disappear, and you can have more information on one page. But as soon as you start scrolling up, the header will come back again. You will recognize this from how many applications on your mobile phone also work. So this will just give you a bigger area to provide information. And as I said, better support for mobile devices, multiple images on most objects, quick navigations between objects on the same level. And I've seen that a lot of people here from Dometic, and I just wanted to show how that looks for them, look and feel for them in the part. That we have here. If you are on the start page of the spare parts portal, and you would minimize the width, then you will see that everything will be nicely stacked on top of each other. And even if you go and search for a specific product, then you will see that everything will be nicely stacked in a list. Here we have the picture, and as I said, we can scroll to multiple pictures. We get the information types, documents, spare parts, the specifications. If we go back again to large, then we see it again in a normal. So it's really made so that it works very nicely for a mobile interface, but also, of course, very nicely for an interface that is a desktop. And if you would go here, we also said that you can, if you are in a certain section of a product, you can easily, from the door section, navigate sideways to the cabinet section, the cooling section, or you go back up to the one level to where the product is. So there's a really big lift in how the user interface looks and feels, and also how you can configure it. Oops, should have done Shift F5. Yes, the order process has been changed a lot. There's also basically a new windows, new dialogues for the orders. Also a review step before the end, before you would immediately place the order. Now you will get some kind of overview first of what did I order. One interesting thing that you will see is that if you put in parts of a specific product or a specific section, then the system will automatically look up all the documentation that is relevant within that context. For instance, a user manual or a replacement instructions, and we'll add that to the order, and you have the possibility to download it. You have the possibility to download it the moment you are ordering. So if you look at the picture here on the right side at the bottom, you see documentation for your order, and you can select them all, or you can maybe just download one of them. Or you can wait until you have placed the order and you get your confirmation email, and you will get a list of documents that are linked to this order, and you can download them at that point in time. Also, we have made it easier for people who, for instance, know the order, the part number, or they have a lot of addresses. We have made these kind of forward-looking search functionality. So if I want to add a part to my shopping cart, I go here to my website, I click on my shopping cart so that I get a preview of what I have already in there in my shopping cart. And then I start typing the part number. And then, of course, since I'm now demonstrating this, it should not work. 1 second. Not sure what happened here. That was interesting. I just tested this for 10 minutes ago, but I've done something here. But that's the idea. You get a list of all the parts, and then you just click the parts. Just if you're looking for it's probably here or not. It's not part of the product that I'm currently in the context of. That could be it. Bear with me. Yes. No. Okay. I'm very sorry. That was typically the demonstration effect. Demonstration goes not working, but the idea is that when you're here, you get a list of parts, and then you select the part from that list and you add them to your shopping cart. Well, I don't know really what went wrong here, but I can assure you that it works in normal operations. So these are all functionality on the look and feel, but also on the e-commerce part of our platform, because we see that there's a trend of before most of our customers, they were doing B2B sales, and we see a trend that also people who use the system for B2B purposes, they look at how they order their computer in the evening at another site, and they want to have the same look and feel, they want to have the same functionality, and that's why we also should adapt to that. But also we see that our customers in the manufacturing industry are moving away or looking at the possibility to not only sell B2B, but also B2C, and give a possibility to the end customers to directly order from the site, maybe only wear parts or tear parts, but also in the end spare parts. And that is then fully possible, and that's why it should look very good, very, very slick, and it should also be very, there should be this kind of lookup functionality and so on. Another way to handle that is that you say, okay, I have an end user, and this person, in this case, maybe a farmer who has bought a Weatherstad machine, is interested to buy spare parts, wear parts, but doesn't have an account to do that, but can create a shopping list and send this shopping list to the dealer, so that instead of calling or sending an email, you can make this process less error prone and also faster. So an anonymous user can look around, pick stuff, put it in a shopping list, look at the shopping list, And when you're finished, you can email or download the shopping list. And if you download the shopping list, you can attach it to an email to the place where you normally buy your parts, and they will create an order. And they can just import that file into the system I'm sorry, where they are logged in, and then it will become an order. And also, and you also see this a lot in B2C sites, it's possible to go in as an anonymous user, fill your shopping list, your pick list, but then log in anyway, and then we will convert it automatically to an order, and you can order it directly. So you can have it both ways. It's a good new functionality. You can also keep the shopping list and build further on it, and then when you're ready, you can send it. Another additional functionality to our e-commerce part of our solution is cross sales and sales statistics. What you can do, what you can see, what is visible for the user is that when I go into my site, I can, for instance, see that, okay, last time you ordered a part, you actually selected this product. So if I have an agricultural machine, I have a B45, and I go into the system, I search for B45, I go into it and I order a part. Next time, when I come back, it says, oh, your last order actually was for this B45. So you can click directly on this. In the picture you see here, it says, okay, it's the PNC, the product number code of your last order. So you can click there and you can order basically spare parts for the same product again. So this is based on sales statistics. So this is a functionality that you can add to our platform, the sales statistics, and we will keep track on all the parts and kits and so on that you have ordered, or that the user has ordered, but also the context of it. From where, from which section did they put it in, or did they put it in directly in the shopping cart? From which product, so that you can also get out statistics of what is the best-selling product, what is the best-selling product for this customer or this area or this user. And that statistics in the end can of course be used also to see, okay, here's a specific spare part which is bought very often for the same product line or the same product. So there is some kind of design error in this spare part, or this combination at least. So we can keep the sales statistics, and we can keep it as anonymized as you want. If you don't want to maybe link that to a user, that's then a different type of statistics. And then you can use that information to present information on the web page, or to use that statistics for other purposes and get it out of the system and download it. Then we have also links between parts that are not based on statistics, but that you make yourself. This can be for cross sales, for up sales, but for some of our customers, even for down sales. Like, okay, you maybe a dealer who is not only selling original spare parts, but also alternatives, can say, oh, here's the original, but here you have the alternative. So that's probably not interesting for an OEM, but for other users, this could be good. So there we added a specific function in the backend, which I will show later, where you can create links between parts or between elements, and also put them in a context. So if you are on this product and you choose this part, then show these other parts. And then you can have this, what you see in the picture here, featured parts, which will be shown. These are the featured parts which are linked to the start page. But then if you select a product, you can select show other featured parts. And if you select a part, you can show specific featured parts that are linked to that part. So this is a very interesting functionality where you can manually create links between parts, and in that way do some cross sales and upsales, downsales. I already showed a little bit about the download functionality. That was had to do with that if you are on an order, you can see what is the related documentation for all the parts that are included in the order, or all the products that are related to these parts. But we also have a separate download function that you can enable. Probably not for all users, but this can be very interesting. You can say, okay, I have these 20 different models or products, and show me a list of all the parts that are included in these products. Well, they are normally presented by catalogs, what we call catalogs. Or we say, okay, I have this part, in what catalogs or models are these used? So I know that this part from this supplier was not good. So we want to know what models are actually using this, so that we can send out a bulletin and they change that part, or they do something to fix this problem. So, and this can then be, this is about parts, relations between parts and catalogs in both ways. It's also a relation between documents and catalogs. So you can say, I have these 20 machines, and give me a list, and I want to download a list of all the documentation related to these machines that I've selected. And then finally, on the order page, you can download the documentation for an order. So these are also very good for, especially, I guess, on the back end to get this information and download it in different formats. The CSV file, a PDF, and Excel. And you can upload, if you want this list of parts, you upload them to match them with the catalogs. I briefly mentioned that you might send out a bulletin if you find a dangerous part that needs to be fixed, and then you know what catalogs, for instance, that is related to. Users now can subscribe with a B, not a P, on newly published bulletins, and they can get an email once a day or once a week. This is very good, of course, for users who don't log in every day. Maybe they only do it every 2 months or so. And of course, they will only be sent bulletins that they are allowed based on their permissions. So if I'm in the web viewer, I'm not allowed to see a bulletin because of my lack of permissions, then of course this bulletin will also not be sent to me by or through this email functionality. Those were the big new functionalities in version 5. We have a lot of minor functionalities that I will not mention here, but here we have some others that are in between. Exclude parts from Kit Lookup. We have this wonderful feature that if I click on a part in a part list, then the web viewer will go and find kits that include this part, and then the system will say, well, okay, you were interested in this part, but maybe you are actually interested to buy this kit. Maybe you want to replace this this heater here, but then you also will need these and these and these. So you could best buy this kit. Then you get everything and you get the instructions to do that and so on. But these kits may also include a lot of very generic parts like a ring or a washer. And then if you click on the washer, you would get maybe 30 different kits. So that would not be interesting. So we have now a way to say, okay, exclude these parts from the kit lookup, so that only when you, for instance, select the heater or another typical part, then you actually get the kit for replacing the heater. Small feature, the login page, you can select a number of images, so you can see every time you log in, you get another image, just to make it a little bit more live. Small things, but it will feel very fresh for the user. That, oh, this is a new nice picture on the login page. You can have you can have on the login page images that shows the full screen. If we go here to this one, for instance, and I log out, sign out, I will get back to the login page. It can look like this, and then next time I come, I see another machine. So this is very very nice, simple feature, but it gives a good idea of that you have a very nice and professional platform. Documents preview without the need to download them. You can quickly look at them. Presentation templates. Okay, yes. So we have different types of presentations. You have parts, you have part modules, you have documentation, and you can, as I said, that you have now very much freedom to decide what to show and what to not to show, which attributes, which fields do we want to show, and where, and how many columns, and so on. So with the 5.00 version, you will get out of the box a template for each of these different for different types of information, and then based on the template, you can start creating your own templates and decide in which circumstances you want to use which template. So if you're one product line, maybe want to present the product in a different way than another product line. So then you can create templates without the need then to put everything in one big profile config file that many of you maybe know of. You can have these presentations, these templates in a different place and manage them in a better way, in an easier way. This was what I had to present about the web viewer. Maybe this is a moment if someone has a command or a question to jump in and ask me. And you can unmute yourself, I've heard. Otherwise, I will continue to the manager part. Yes? No.
Good question.
Yes. Yes.
This is Hans. Hi.
Hi, Hans.
I noticed this automatic subscription that you can get a notice when a new bulletin is released.
Yes.
Where is this functionality? Is this in the bulletin page or in your own settings page?
It is in the each user can choose it, so it will come up. As I understood it, it's in the when you choose the bulletin. Actually, I would have to look this up. I haven't used it myself because it can be in two places. It can be in the My account or in the bulletins place, because these are both user specific. The information, or if you're subscribed or not, is of course stored in our server database. I will get back to you where exactly that button would be if you enable it. Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Okay. Then we have the backend. That is where we more and more are looking at typical product information management systems, like, for instance, in River, which from until now, and of course for still, have been a little bit better in maintaining the data, being strict on validating the data, keeping reference tables and so on. And we are looking there, and we are slowly including more and more functionality to work and improve the quality of information in Signifikant. Of course, we have done more than that, but that's a lot of work has been going into typically validation and creating reference tables for fields that you add yourself and so on. But what we have worked on is more import options. We have integrated with more systems, and one example is in River. And of course, this is because some of our customers use in River, where they can export the information and we can import it into Signifikant. This is typically that Signifikant is meant to unify and get information from many sources. So it gets information from factories, from suppliers, and in this case it is getting information about the products that are being sold, and that needs to be put together into one database, one list of products and sections and parts that you have. It's now also possible, we have been working and improving that you can import for all data types, everything in Signifikant. We now have a possibility to import through XML. We started with parts and part assemblies and part lists and so on, and then catalogs and documentation. And now we have come so far that our SSX, the Signifikant simplified XML format, includes the possibility to import everything, including for instance, we have specifications and specification types. So you can say, I have a new specification type, which means we have a new type of attribute or field that we want to add to our information. Those new types you can import themselves too. And you can import, of course, the values that those types should have or may have. Also on the Excel import, because still Excel, but also CSV files, which we basically handle in the same way, is a very popular way of sharing information. So we have also added more possibilities to import information through Excel for, in this case, catalogs and specifications. Export. We have included easier export from the manager directly from the storages to XML and also to Excel. And we'll see on the next page that this also now in an easy way includes the specifications, so the dynamic attributes, your own attributes that you add. Since Signifikant is now more and more being used not only by the technical information department, but also by other systems, we have included the possibility to limit the functionality for manager for specific users. So we can say that you are only allowed to work with parts and you are only allowed to work with products, for instance. So it's very granular. I will also show you a list later on what you can limit and what not. So to make sure that people are working with what they should be working with and are not tempted to change something or somewhere else or do that by mistake. We have added APIs. We've always had APIs to the database to import information. So we always have the possibility that someone puts an export file in a specific location, and then through a script, calls our server and says, hey, there is some new information, please import it, and then validate it and then publish it. All this was possible through the API. We now have added APIs to also query the data, and this is both in the editorial environment, but can also be enabled in the web environment, in the web viewer environment. So it's possible to create, or from other systems, ask Signifikant for information. Well, do you have this catalog, and give me the information, or give me a list of all parts, and so on. And so, for instance, another web shop could query the web viewer API for a specific part, and then get all the information that Signifikant has about it, and use that in the other web shop to show that information. Reference information on specifications. This is this is about that you can create reference tables and say that, okay, I have a part, and this part has a width and a height. Oh no, that's maybe not a good example. I have a product and it has a frequency, and you can choose between 50 and 60 hertz. You cannot make up something that suddenly has 72 hertz. So then I can make a reference table and say that we have these two values, and you can only choose between them. And this is validated during import. It can be validated while you manually import the information. It can be validated before publication. It can also be validated before you change the status of an item, and prevent the change of the status of the item. And then you can also ad hoc always start all the validations and see which parts don't meet the validation rules. And one of these rules then is that you can make sure that the values are correct that you give to a certain specification, to a certain attribute. Also, you can set mandatory attributes. Again, there you can prevent the change of a status when a mandatory attribute is missing. And also you can do a validation and show me all the elements that have missing information. And it is possible to add columns. So if you're looking at the storage, you're looking at all the products, then you add a column and say, okay, this validation rule, show me if it's met or not. For instance, if you have a product and you want all the products to have a certain type of documentation, for instance, all products should have a user manual in their catalog, then you can validate if they have it, and you can show the result in a column so that you can quickly find all the products that don't have this documentation. I believe currently this is only implemented for the no products and the no spare parts validations, but this will be other validations will be added soon. So a little bit on this, the specifications. So as said, if you have it here we see a part storage, and each part has specific specifications which are typical for this user, this customer. We have the cooling you see in a column, you have the frequency, and these two, they are added for this specific customer, this use case. And then we can set up a configuration that says, okay, add these in the manager as columns. So we don't only have the standard. Before, you had the standard columns, part number, brand, name, identity, and then you had one column which in an arbitrary order had all the specifications. That's no longer the case. From this version on, or actually already 4.5, I believe, had it, you can have these columns. This also means that you can select a lot of these items and export it, for instance, to Excel, as you see in the top right corner. And there they also will be their own columns. And you can use then Excel to add information. Maybe you're missing the frequency on half of the product, so you can easily add it there, and then you can import it again. So now it's much easier to export and import and enrich the information than it was before. If we import, then of course we will use the validation rules that we have set up. So in this error box that you see there, it actually says that the frequency cannot have a new value 80. Only already available specifications allowed. So you can only choose from the values that are already available, that are already there, which typically would be 50 and 60. On the dialog where it says added specifications, you can see an exclamation mark, which shows that this is a mandatory value. You can still press the OK button, but the element will not, the validation rule will not be fulfilled, which means that in the bottom you see the validation result dialog, that this part will then end up there in this list of items missing mandatory specifications. And if you then double click on this line 39 items, then you will get, it will open the part storage with these 39 items, and you can add this information that is actually missing. So there's a good process here of finding what's missing and then fixing it. We've been adding validations in this version also. So here's a complete list of all the validations. Catalog configuration are all catalogs, typically products or models. Are the structure, are they correct? Do all have a note for spare parts and for documentation, for instance? Do all catalogs have documentation or specific documentation which you can point out? Do they all have sections, spare parts, catalogs? Do they have spare parts? Yeah, you can see here, you can read through this list a lot of different validations. And of course, if you have another need, then you can always contact us and say, well, we are interested in this validation. And hopefully it's something that we can do generic so that we can add it and then it's available for all significant customers. Otherwise, we can always create a custom validation and add it to this list for your installation. This is valid for all functionality we have. It's always possible to add a custom version of our functionality, but of course, in the end, we want to keep the customizations at as low level as possible. We rather have functionality that is configurable and that you can turn off or on. Here you see an example of these two columns. You see two columns here at the end, no documents, no spare parts. There you can see then that there are some of these products, they don't have documentation. Well, then you select them and you add these documentation. This is also interesting since the information in the Signifikant is coming from many sources. We are very flexible in importing the information, and we have very many ways to do that. You can do it from XML, from Excel, and then you configure your import system, and then if that doesn't work, you can create a customized solution. And we want to get rid of these customizations, so we now have made it possible to, by configuration, identify values in import files and replace them by other values. So I had the example of hertz, of 50 hertz and 60 hertz. Say that you have two systems, and in one system they have just the value 50 and 60, and when they export it, that will be in the export file. And the other system, when they export, they have an existing export file with where it says 50 hertz and 60 hertz. Then you can, in your configuration file, say that, okay, for this specification, if you get a value 50 hertz, change it to 50. So instead of ignoring or stopping the import, which are other options that you say, well, if I get a value that is not valid, then ignore it, or if I get a value that's not valid, stop the complete import. It's also possible to first try, okay, maybe we can map this information. We maybe recognize this anyway, but in Signifikant, we don't want to have different values for the specification which mean the same thing. So this is basically that you, in the configuration of Signifikant, you can add mapping tables for the information that is imported. So that's also very interesting and nice new feature. The manager user permission. So this is where you can create an arbitrary number of groups that people can belong to, and each of these groups you can then give specific permissions or rights to do something. And it's very much linked to also the menu structure. As somebody can open the brand menu, that means also you can edit the brands, or open the bulletin storage, the catalog storage, the document storage. So in this way, you can limit people from access information in the manager. We have a new storage called part relations. If you look at the icon bar there, then you see a shopping cart somewhere with two arrows who are going across each other. So it's an icon for cross sales, but the storage is called part relations group. That means that because it's not only for cross sales, this information can be used in many ways. It's basically linking elements to each other inside a specific context. So if we look at the first one, then we link the parts P1, P3, P4, and P11. We link them to another part where we have that part number 1, and we do that based on a specification where you are in the catalog start and you are in an English, I believe. Oh, they are linked to part number 12. You see that at the bottom. We're actually going to improve this user interface. This is a first take on it. It does what it needs to do, but it's not so easy to use yet. But it's good enough for using it for what we want to use it right now, but we will improve it in the next probably minor upgrade or the next. But what you do here is you have a part and you link it to other parts and set a scope for that, so that you can, and that this then typically can be used by featured accessories, featured parts, featured and so on. Then we have a lot of customers who create scripts that are run every night to export and then import and validate and publish. We have included a task scheduler in Signifikant, which means that you can set up these tasks in Signifikant. Say that, okay, I want every night at 1 o'clock, I want to look for this type of files, this type of export files. If there are any new ones, you can actually point out a source directory per type. So previously, all export files needed to be in the same directory, but now you can have different directories for different sources or different formats, so that also the people who are providing these files, they can easily manage. They have their own directory to where they can clean it up if they want. But then you say that, okay, every night at 1 o'clock or every other night at 1 o'clock, import this information and then publish. So you can set that up. Yes, and you can schedule it daily, weekly, monthly. So you have a trigger, you have an action, import, publish, or cleanup. And in import, you point out a specific import type in the import config file, and publish, you point out a publication that you have in your site. Yes, I took away, I had all kinds of links here to our knowledge base. Maybe I can just open this to show you that everything I'm telling here can also be accessed through our excellent knowledge base, where we have a lot of information. So if you have questions about validations, or you have questions about, in this case, the task manager, go to knowledgebase.signifikant.nl SE, of course, and you can browse here, navigate, or you can search. So validation, and you will say validation of information, and you get, okay, we have rules, settings, scopes, and targets. Okay, what are the rules? What are the available rule names? What are the options that you can set for a rule? What are the scopes and the targets, and how do you use it in the system? So really, the knowledgebase.signifikant.se is a fantastic source of information, where you can read again everything what I have told and go deeper into it also, because it will also reference you to you can also download example configuration files and so from there. Other manager features. From 4.5 to 5.0, we have a new database, which means that if you want to upgrade, you install the new manager and you try to open a site, it will ask you to upgrade it. Before you do that, always make a backup. But because once it's upgraded, you cannot open the database anymore in the old version of the manager. But of course, you will regularly take backups anyway, so that should not be an issue. But that's to support all these new features that we have. For instance, to have more images per product, per catalog, and so on, and a lot of other features, the cross sales features and so on, that we just needed to upgrade the database. There are more multi-edit features. So if you are in a storage and you select a number of items, you can right click and then you say action on selected items, as you see here in this picture. Then you can change the status for all these items or add a permissions for all these items. This can be 10,000 or 30,000 items. Remove permissions, add bulletins, add specifications, add an image to all of them, add a reference, add a presentation, which can be then anything from a part module to a part or an illustration and so on. And if you have set, if you've configured your catalogs nicely, then you can actually just select the catalogs and say add these documents, and the documents will be placed under the correct node. And then you go on and you add a bunch of part assemblies, and the part assemblies will be put underneath the part assembly node, because in the catalog configuration, the default catalog configuration, you can tell Signifikant what node should have documentation and what node should have part modules and so on. By default, of course, manually you can do anything you want. You can put a document in a part assembly node and the other way around. We have added possibility to navigate from a part to a replacement, which can be very useful. We have, so you don't need to use the show references first and then go there. And we have a pretty specific function, but very interesting. A lot of our customers, they create, when they have a new model, they create a copy of the old model. So they create a copy of the old catalog. And then they want to maybe to make a change in a certain part assembly. They want to change a part. But if they do that, since we reuse all information all the time, if they would do that inside that catalog, they would change that for all other catalogs that are using that part assembly. So we have actually added one button in the part assembly when you're inside the catalog to create a copy and insert that instead of the current part assembly. And then you can make all the changes you want. This actually spares you a lot of time and clicks. So I think I kept myself pretty well to the time, 5 minutes left. So please, if you have any questions, let me know.
Thank you, Ruud. We had a question from Katya. They wanted to know if a relationship between a cooling unit and a thermal mastic, for example, can be created. Maybe Katya, if you could unmute your mic, you could ask your question to Ruud.
Yes, it was with the basket and the arrows. Yeah, and here.
Yes.
And if I make a relationship between a cooling unit and the thermal mastic, which belongs to the cooling unit, if you will exchange it, how will that shown in domatic parts? Is it like that I push on the cooling unit to order it, and then the system will say, oh, if you use this cooling unit, you must also or can also order the thermal mastic, or how would it work?
Yes, that's exactly how it's thought to work. Yes.
Yeah.
And where it
you
is
show
shown that is something that we discuss with customer. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. That was.
You're welcome.
I guess there are no other questions at this moment, or sorry, I think we have one more question. Yeah, so looks like we have no other questions. I will be sharing the slide deck with all of you, as well as a link to view this recording again. Thank you very much for joining today's session. Thank you, Ruud. And if you have any further questions, please drop Ruud or me an email, and we'll get back to you at the earliest. Thank you very much. Have a great afternoon ahead.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.